Let me tell you something about Tom Holland that most people don't talk about enough. Yes, he's Spider-Man. Yes, he's one of the most famous actors on the planet. Yes, he's married to Zendaya, which honestly is its own entire documentary waiting to happen. But underneath all of that, there's a story about money, about pressure, about alcohol, about sobriety, about mental health, and about a guy who had to figure all of this out while the entire world was watching. And I think that story is way more interesting than anything happening in the MCU right now. So today, we're going deep. We're talking Tom Holland's finances, how he earns, how much he's worth, where his money actually comes from, and we're talking about his health journey, the sobriety, the mental health, the transformation that changed not just his life, but the lives of people around him. This is the full story. Let's get into it. Before we talk about millions of dollars in Marvel contracts, we need to go back to the beginning, because Tom Holland's financial story doesn't start in Hollywood, it starts in a dance class in Wimbledon. Tom was 9 years old, attending a local dance school, when a choreographer spotted him at a dance festival and saw something special. That single moment led him to being cast in the West End production of Billy Elliot the Musical in London. For years, Tom Holland, this kid from Kingston upon Thames, was performing 8 shows a week on one of the world's most prestigious stages. This wasn't a hobby. This was professional, demanding, high-level performing arts, and it built the foundation of everything that came after. Now, when he eventually made the leap to film, starting with The Impossible in 2012, where he starred alongside Naomi Watts, he wasn't some overnight sensation. He had been grinding for years. He had the work ethic of someone who had been doing this since childhood. And that matters when we start talking about how he built his money. Because Tom Holland's wealth was never handed to him. He earned every single cent of it. Now, let's talk about the moment that changed everything financially. In 2015, Marvel announced that a young, largely unknown British actor named Tom Holland would be the new Spider-Man. He was 19 years old, he had a limited resume, and he was about to sign one of the most significant franchise deals in Hollywood history. His first paycheck as Spider-Man was $250,000 for a brief appearance in Captain America: Civil War. Now, that sounds like a lot, and it is, but in the world of Hollywood blockbusters, it's actually quite modest for a superhero role. Then came Spider-Man: Homecoming in 2017. His base salary jumped to $500,000, and with box office bonuses on a film that earned $880 million worldwide, his total paycheck hit around $1.5 million. Avengers: Endgame in 2018 paid him $3 million, and by the time Spider-Man: Far From Home landed, earning over $1.1 billion at the box office, he was pulling in around $4 million. Then came No Way Home in 2021, $1.9 billion worldwide, one of the highest-grossing films in cinema history, and Tom Holland was front and center for all of it. His paycheck for that film is estimated to have been significantly higher, with back-end bonuses from a movie that massive pushing his earnings into territory that completely transformed his financial life. By this point, his standard base salary for any film had locked in at $4 to $5 million per project. And now, in 2026, with Spider-Man: Brand New Day dropping on July 31st, reports suggest his salary has climbed to somewhere between $15 and $20 million, plus back-end participation, which means he gets a percentage of the profits on a film that is almost certainly going to make over $1 billion. Let that sink in for a second. From $250,000 to potentially $20 million in about 10 years. That is one of the most dramatic salary trajectories in modern Hollywood. Now, here's the part of Tom Holland's financial story that gets overlooked a lot, and it's actually the most interesting part. Nearly every dollar he has made traces back to one character. Strip away Spider-Man, and the financial picture gets much quieter. That is both the incredible blessing and the quiet risk of his career. And Tom Holland knows it. That's why, alongside the Marvel films, he has been very deliberately building a career outside the suit.
Cherry in 2021, The Crowded Room on Apple TV Plus in 2023, where he also served as executive producer, giving him a stake in the project beyond just his acting salary. Uncharted in 2022, and now in 2026, he has what might be the most strategically important film of his career, The Odyssey, directed by Christopher Nolan. It drops July 17th, exactly 2 weeks before Brand New Day. Think about what that means. Tom Holland, in a single summer, will appear in a Christopher Nolan prestige epic and the fourth Spider-Man movie. He could become the first actor in history to receive top billing in $2 billion films in the same calendar year. The Nolan film matters enormously for his long-term financial value. Nolan doesn't hire actors to fill costumes. He hires actors because he believes they can carry a film on their own. Being cast by Nolan is one of the most powerful career endorsements you can get in Hollywood, and it directly translates into negotiating power for every contract that comes after. Tom Holland is building something, and the smart money says the next 10 years of his career and his bank account are going to look very different from the first 10. Okay, let's talk about Barrow, because this might genuinely be the most interesting financial decision Tom Holland has made. In October 2024, Tom co-founded and launched Barrow, a non-alcoholic beer brand. It expanded to over 1,200 Target stores in January 2025. In its first year, it approached $10 million in sales, and it is projecting 3x revenue growth going into 2026. Now, celebrity alcohol brands are nothing new, but Barrow is different for a very specific reason. It's non-alcoholic, and it wasn't created as a marketing exercise. It came directly from Tom's own sobriety journey, which we're going to get into in a minute. The genius of Barrow isn't just the product, it's the positioning. Tom Holland, one of the most famous men in the world, is publicly sober and openly talking about it. His personal story is the marketing. His fan base is the target audience. Young people who are curious about sober living, about mindful drinking, about a different relationship with alcohol. They see Tom Holland and they see themselves. He also brought in Robert Downey Jr. as a collaborator and an Aston Martin partnership. The brand is built with a brewmaster with 40 years of experience, and unlike most non-alcoholic beers that are made by removing alcohol from regular beer, Barrow was built from scratch without that process. The intention was to make something that actually tasted good on its own merits, not just as a substitute. This is a long-term business play, and for a guy whose acting salary is tied entirely to whether studios keep casting him, having an independent business that grows regardless of what Marvel or Hollywood decides, that's financial intelligence at a high level. Okay, so where does all of this leave Tom Holland in 2026? Net worth estimated to be $25 million, with some sources placing it closer to $25 to $30 million once you factor in pending earnings from Brand New Day. Assets include a $4 million three-bedroom flat in London. He also spends time in New York with Zendaya. His endorsement portfolio includes Prada and Cartier, two of the most prestigious luxury brands in the world. That kind of brand alignment doesn't happen by accident. It reflects how Hollywood perceives his image: premium, aspirational, globally recognizable. And then there's the Zendaya factor. Their combined net worth in 2026 is estimated to be around $55 million. Zendaya's net worth is actually slightly higher than Tom's, somewhere around $30 million, which honestly just makes them even more interesting as a couple. They are genuinely building wealth together, not just merging bank accounts. By any measure, at 30 years old, Tom Holland is financially set. But the more interesting story, the one that actually explains why he's in the position he's in, isn't the money at all. It's what happened during a very quiet January in 2022. In January 2022, Tom Holland was 25 years old. He had just come off No Way Home, a film that had made nearly $2 billion worldwide. He was one of the most famous people on the planet. And he woke up on the first morning of January, looked at the clock, and all he could think about was having a drink. He had promised himself he would do dry January. He had had, in his own words, a very, very boozy December. Christmas, vacation, drinking a lot, and he decided to just try giving it up for the month. But that morning, sitting there, watching the clock, waiting until he could have a drink, that was the moment he realized something was wrong. He said publicly that he didn't plan to quit, he just did dry January. But the way he described that morning, the clock watching, the fixation, the fact that alcohol was the first thing on his mind, that told him something about his relationship with drinking that he couldn't ignore. He challenged himself to make it to June 1st, his birthday. He made it. He described that birthday as the happiest he had ever felt. And by January 2023, 1 full year in, he said the words that made a lot of people stop and listen. "I'm never going to drink again. This is the best version of myself." As of January 2026, Tom Holland is 3 years sober. Let's talk about what actually changed, because this is the part that matters most. Tom has spoken specifically about what sobriety did for him on a practical, day-to-day level. Better sleep, better problem solving, better emotional regulation. He said things that would go wrong on set that would normally set me off, I could take in my stride. I had so much better mental clarity, I felt healthier, I felt fitter. Think about what that means for someone whose job requires extreme physical preparation, intense emotional presence, and the ability to show up at full capacity every single day. Sobriety wasn't just a lifestyle choice for Tom Holland, it was a performance upgrade. He also filmed The Crowded Room, one of the most emotionally demanding roles of his career, completely sober. He took a full year off afterwards to protect his
mental health. This is a guy who was learning, in real time, how to be a high-performance creative person without burning himself out, and that is genuinely rare in Hollywood. The ripple effect on the people around him has been remarkable too. He talked about having his mates over and realizing no one was drinking. Everyone was present, no hangovers the next day. He said the shift in his own behavior quietly changed the social culture around him. And this matters beyond just Tom Holland. He's one of the most visible young men in popular culture. When he talks openly about sobriety, not as a tragedy, not as a rock-bottom story, but as a positive, empowering choice, it reaches millions of young fans who are having their own complicated relationships with alcohol and not seeing many people who look like them choosing differently. One more piece of this story that deserves attention. Tom Holland has been publicly, deliberately protective of his mental health. After The Crowded Room wrapped, he said it was the hardest thing he had ever done. He took a year off. He did not immediately jump to the next project. He protected himself. He has talked openly in interviews about setting limits, about not chasing every opportunity, about not letting the machine of Hollywood decide his schedule for him. He has said he plans to take significant time off in 2027 after what has been an extremely demanding 2025 to 2026 production run. For someone who got famous at 19, who has been inside the Marvel machine for a decade, who has had very little breathing room between massive projects, this level of self-awareness about what he needs is significant. The actors who survive franchise fame long-term are the ones who figure this out. Tom Holland appears to be figuring it out. So here is the full picture of Tom Holland in 2026. A $25 million net worth, a salary that is about to jump dramatically, a non-alcoholic beer brand that is genuinely growing, 2 of the biggest films of the year dropping within 2 weeks of each other, married to Zendaya, living in London. And underneath all of that, 3 years sober, mentally healthier than he has ever been, physically in the best shape of his life, and openly choosing to protect his peace in an industry that does not always make that easy. The money story is impressive, the career story is fascinating, but the health story, that's the one that I think is actually going to define his legacy. Because Tom Holland didn't wait for a crisis to change. He caught something early, he took it seriously, he made the harder choice, and he is genuinely better for it. That's not just a Hollywood story, that's a human story, and it is a pretty good one. If you found this video interesting, hit the like button, it genuinely helps. Subscribe for more videos like this, and drop in the comments what surprised you most about Tom Holland's story. I read every single one. See you in the next one.